there's a pursuit of Christ that you have to bring things with you, right? So there's 3 things we're going to talk about today. And I want to be clear that your walk with God is not always going to be easy. But it is good. It is worth it. See, having a walk with Christ, it means I have a best friend next to me at all times. I can always call out on him. I can always count that he's helping me. I can count on him that he goes before me, right? He's not just here when I say I need him. He's here always, and we do need him always. But you know what I'm talking about, where it gets bad, and we're like, oh God, I really need you at this moment. I need you to come through in these areas. We need God at all moments, right? But he's there for us. He's there through every single thing. And it's good. He brings us peace in the midst of trials, in the midst of chaos. Okay? We serve a good Father. But there are some requirements to bring on your journey with Christ. The very first thing is sacrifice. There is a sacrifice on this journey. You have to count the cost. There was a cost to serving Jesus. There's a cost to saying yes to ministry. There's a cost to anything you do, right? Even choosing to go to college, there's a cost, a very big one. What is it? Money. Your tuition. Okay, and if you're in a little campus, you got to pay for food, you got to pay for dorms, you probably got to pay for gas to get to the college, right? There's a lot of things that cost in life. If you go to the grocery store and I give you $20, you can only spend what? No more. Now, does that mean you can check out everything? You say, okay, this adds up exactly to 20. Now let me check out.
You could.
No.
Taxes.
You got taxes.
You said you already checked everything out.
No, you're going to check out right now. You got taxes to pay for. So even that you got to account for. And you only have $20. There is a cost to everything that you do. Everything you want. And the Bible tells us to count the cost. Luke 14:28 says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? See, when I was saying yes to this journey of being a missionary, there was a cost that came with it. I had to evaluate, am I willing to leave my family for months at a time, to miss big celebrations? Am I willing to be gone when someone passes away? Am I willing to struggle sometimes with finances? Am I willing to say yes to the call, and that means I say no to some things at home? See, when Pastor Dylan and Pastor Alyssa first got engaged, they didn't know when they were going to get married. I thought I wasn't going to come to the wedding because of when the wedding was going to fall. And I had to count the cost. And if you know anything, you know she's my very best friend, and I don't want to miss her wedding at all. Thank God I'm able to be here. But I thought that I wouldn't be able to. And it was still okay, because I knew that the calling was greater than the cost. There are things you have to evaluate things in your life. You have to evaluate, is the cost worth it? There are things that you have to sacrifice, not just if you're called into ministry, but in a walk with as Christians. As a Christian, there are things you're going to have to say no to. There are times you're going to have to put your phone down. You're going to have to say no to the phone call, no to the video game, no to the TikTok. Because you need to spend time with Jesus. There are games and things that you can't entertain as a Christian. There's a cost. There's sacrifice. And that's okay. It's okay that we have to sacrifice things. Because in Romans 12:1, it says, I appeal to you, brothers. Oh, that's not what it says. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. It says, present yourself as a sacrifice to God. So what does that mean? That means I go before God. God, whatever you don't want in my life, take out. I've shared a story before, I don't know how long ago, but there was this TV show that really wasn't a bad TV show, but as the years went on, it kept adding things in it that was a lot more of the world, and more of the world, and more of the world. And I was like, well, I've been watching it for 3 seasons or 4 seasons. And I was talking to this lady who was sort of a new Christian, and we were just talking, and she said, yeah, this TV show, yeah, God really convicted me. I just can't watch it. It has too much of the world in it. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And in my heart, I'm like, well, God, why didn't you convict me of and I'm sitting here, and I'm like, yeah, it's okay. God was like, you didn't ask me. You've never invited me into that part of your life. And I was like, okay, that hurt. So Lord, should I watch this? And he was like, no. I said, okay, I'll never watch it again. And it wasn't that the show itself was this horrible show, but it kept adding things to the world, and I was just sitting here and taking that in. And the reason I felt no conviction about it is because I didn't allow God into that place in my life. So that was a part of sacrificing, counting the cost. And I want to go deeper with God, and what I'm listening to, what I'm watching is holding me back. So God, I'll stop. Take it away. Help me have self-control to not walk in that, to not watch that. There is sacrifice that takes place. And the next thing is your surrender. Okay? A cost, right? Your walk, a pursuit of Christ takes sacrifice and it takes surrender. And sometimes I struggle with surrendering my control. Does anybody else have struggled letting go of your control stuff? Anybody else? I'm going to be honest. Yeah? Yeah, okay. All of us, most of us struggle with our control of things. We want to be in control of everything in our life. Right? Even down to our hair, right? That's why we hate when our parents tell us we can't cut our hair, we can't do it because it's my hair. Right? I do what I want with my hair. Okay? Then there's some bigger things, right? There's some life or death situations that I've been in that I decided I just had to have control of. If you look at this picture on the screen, I gave you a beautiful image of what happened this day. It was a beautiful day in New Orleans, and I traveled. We had gas, we had a car, we had towels, we had bathing suits. We had money. But enough money only to go through the raft, not to pay for the raft. So we get to this place, and we're going through the river, and I didn't realize that this is a 4-hour journey that we're on. And it's like a group of us there, we're going, and then one of our group members falls off. And I was like laughing because it was funny. They didn't think it was funny. That's on me. Sometimes you don't need to laugh, check if they're okay first. But anyways, I hop off and I'm like, oh, I'm going to help them, be a nice person. So I jump off, and as you see, there are trees all around me. This is the actual scene right here, okay? Trees all around me. And I had my raft and this other person's raft that I'm trying to save. So I get in between this tree, and if you can't see it because the raft is blocking it, which is exactly how it was, underneath me there's a log. So I'm standing on a log, there's trees all around me, and the current is pushing me against a tree, and I have 2 rafts in my hand. And I'm like, I don't want to pay for this, I'm not letting go. Because if I let go, it's gone. So I'm not going to let go of this, I'm going to just figure it out. I wasn't even praying. I was just going to figure it out, okay? So I'm staring at the tree, and I'm like this because it's pushing me. And I was like, suddenly, there were tears in my eyes, and I was like, oh no, this is getting serious. I'm stuck. And I'm against this tree, and I'm like, why am I about to cry? I got to get out of this. So my friend that had fell off is like, let go of the raft. I was like, no, not paying for this. So I'm holding the raft. And I'm telling you guys, I'm like this, and I'm trying to jump off the raft. To get off the little trees, I was stuck in trees. So it didn't work. Again, it's just this tiny little tree it's on. I'm trying to get it off, and it wouldn't budge. I could have maybe done it one at a time. I didn't. I'm holding on, trying to get out. But I kept holding on to something that was holding me back from being free. I was holding something, and if I had just surrendered it, I could have walked in freedom. If I had just surrendered it, I'd have been okay. So finally, I listened, and I let go of the rafts. And I got off, and I just swam right to the side. And everything was okay. But for so long, I was sitting there stuck because I was wanting control of the situation. I wanted to make sure that I knew what was going to happen, that I was going to be okay. And how many times do we do that? God says, do this, and we're like, I hear you, God, but I think my way is going to work. Your way doesn't seem that good. I know that if I do it this way, it's going to work. And God's like, but I see ahead of you. I see past what you're walking through. And I'm telling you to surrender this. And so often we don't. We get stuck and we don't want to surrender it. It makes me think about Jonah. Anybody ever read about Jonah and the whale? It's not really a whale, it's a fish. But Jonah and this fish. All right. Jonah 1:1-3 says, the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of, how do you say that? Amittai? Yep, that sounds good. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord. Where did he think he was going to go? That the Lord couldn't see him. But he ran away from the Lord. Okay, so he's headed for Tar. I don't know this word, guys. He's headed right there where Pastor Dylan said. Headed there. There. Okay, he's headed there. And Jonah didn't want to go. He was afraid that they would be forgiven. He was afraid that he knew they would, because he knew God's grace. He knew if he told them the word, that God would give grace upon the city. And he wanted the city to be destroyed. He didn't really want them to have grace. And they were wicked people, so he didn't want to go. So he ran from them. He ends up on this boat. Water's going crazy, okay? Everybody on the boat's like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And Jonah's like, it's me. If you just throw me out, everything's really going to be okay. The problem on this boat is me. Okay? And they're like, you know, we don't want to throw you on the boat. He's like, just throw me out the boat. So they throw him out the boat. This big fish jumps out the water, eats him. Not really eats, he's still alive. This is a PAV version, okay? So he swallows him. He's in this fish. And then he comes to this place where he finally surrenders. There's more to the story, right? We're just focused on this quick part. So we move on to chapter 2, verse 9. And it says, but I, with shouts of grateful praise, this is a part of this whole chapter, he's doing a prayer, right, to God. It says, I will sacrifice to you what I have vowed I will make good. I will say salvation comes from the Lord. So he says, I'm going to go. A life of surrender says that even when I cannot trace you, I trust you. That's what a life of surrender is. See, my mentor, Miss T, she would always tell me, you need to have blind faith. You need to walk blindly. Even when you can't see, trust that God's holding you. And I imagine that as if I really can't see anything, my eyes are closed, and I'm just trusting. Even right here, I know that nothing is in the aisle. But I was too nervous to walk all the way. Because when you can't see, things get scary, right? When you don't understand what's around you, it can get scary. And sometimes it's not that we don't want to surrender to God, but we're fearful. So we stay in this place and we kind of stay stuck. Because we're like, God, if I surrender, what if it goes bad? What if I say yes? What happens when I give you full control? And it can be a scary place. But I promise that God is going before you. We always pray that when we go on our mission trips, and when I'm here, I don't have to be worried if God's going to show up here. He's already here. He came before me. He prepared the way for this message to be preached today. I believe that God is already stirring in your heart things that you need to sacrifice, or things that you need to surrender, or things for the next topic. He's already stirring in your heart. There are things in your mind that you're like, yeah, I can see where I haven't fully given that to God yet. And guys, you can't move forward until you're being obedient. Which leads me to the next thing. Until you submit to God, He's not going to bring you to your next place. He's not going to bring you to the next part of the journey. We end up staying stuck, and some Christians will stay stuck here for years because they're terrified to say yes and let go of control. But God's plans for your life are greater than your wildest dreams or imagination. His plans for your life, it doesn't mean they're easier than you think they're going to be. It doesn't mean that everything is good all the time, but they're better. And even in the bad things, if you're called according to His purpose, God's going to turn those things to good. And I trust Him even when I cannot trace Him. When I can't find His steps, when I don't understand what He's doing, I can still trust Him, and so can you. You can trust that He's still good, that He's the same God yesterday, today, and forever, that He's not going to change randomly on you. He's not going to decide one day just to let you fall. But He's going to hold you. Once you come to this place of surrenderance, you can then move into a place of being submissive to God, which is what we see in Jonah next. In Jonah 3:3 it says, Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord, and he went to Nineveh. Now Nineveh was a very large city, and it took 3 days to go through it, but that beginning part, now he obeyed. He was in this place, in this fish, and he said, okay, I surrender. Whatever you want. Then he came to a place of submission, of obedience, where he said, okay, I will be obedient to what you are calling me to do. Even when I don't understand or agree, I will submit to your plan. There are times that God tells me to do things that I don't really want to do, or that I don't see the point in doing. Right? There are times where God has told me to go pray for people. At camp, there was this little boy, and I just knew I had to go pray for him, but I was like, why? His leaders are right there. Why do I need to go pray for him? So I'm just standing there, and I was like, God, like our students are right here. So I really need to go pray for this little boy who the only reason he grabbed my attention was because he asked me the score of an LSU game. That's how he grabbed my attention the first day. And after that, I saw him everywhere. And I just recognized him. But God was putting him on my heart. And this day on the altar, God was like, go pray for him. Go pray for him. And I went and I prayed, and God gave me a word for him. And I could see in the peripheral of my eye, I could see his leader right behind him. I went and asked him. I was like, hey, can I pray for your student? They're like, yeah. So they had 2 leaders. The other leader standing right there, and I could just see her bawling as I'm praying with him. And I was like, wow, maybe this is right. I'm hoping it is all the time, right? But she's just bawling. And I can see she's listening, but I don't care. It's his leader. And so as I go to walk away, she grabs me and she said, tonight I was just praying that God would send him someone besides us to give him a word. It was an answer to prayers why I had to do it. But I could have allowed my flesh to get in the way. Well, why? His leaders are right there. Why do they need me? Because his leaders were asking God to send someone. I don't always have to understand. You don't have to understand the why to say yes. You can give God your yes before he asks. There were times we were at a restaurant, and I knew we needed to pray for this lady, but I kind of didn't want to. I almost told someone else to because I knew it needed to be done, but I was just a little nervous to do it. But why? God gave me an opportunity to share his love. You never know the impact it's going to make through your obedience, through your submission to the Father. He wants you to say yes. The sentence that was at the beginning of the service. The pursuit of Christ demands sacrifice, surrender, and submission. You've got to get to a place where you say, whatever the cost, I surrender to you. And I submit to your will, and I say yes.